Okay, guys, right. This is part B. I thought this was a great question. I thought so because this carries on from a lot of the things we've been studying, and really, it was a good chance to put into practice understanding price variances, mix variances, and yield variances. Okay, yield always tends to be the weird one. For the first two, definitely. And as you do yield again and again, you sort of see where they're going. So the price variance literally will never change. It literally is how much this guy goes out and he buys 1,000 liters for £2.6 per liter. The question is, how much should he have bought each liter? That's always the case. He goes out, he buys 4,000 liters for three. Remember, this is the purchasing manager we're judging, so we're just judging them on price, literally. And that's the scenario. So if you look at what the standards are, he should have paid. We expected him to buy each liter for the blue paint 2.5, 3, and 10, and we can see what we can literally compare that to what he's done. So let's just do that. So for the blue paint, we expected him to spend £2.50. For the yellow paint, we expected him to spend £3, and for the bonding agent, we expected him to spend £10. Just in the pen color. And what has he done? He has spent, so this was the budget, and this is the actual, and he has spent £2.60, £3.10, and £9.90. So he spent £10p more than he should have for blue and yellow paint, and he spent 10p less as well. But so these are adverse, and this is favorable, right? And it tells us that how many. Well, the question is, how many did he buy? He bought 1,000 here, he bought 4,000 here, and he bought 500 here. So we literally need to multiply. Let me just kind of move it a little in once. So when I have that, I have 100 adverse, 400 adverse, and 50 favorable, which brings me to a total of 450 adverse. And that's my price variance. So always, literally, if this doesn't come up in part C, it'll come up in part A. But these are standard nice questions that you can pick marks up on. Then it goes on to ask us to also prepare the mix variance. Another very nice variance and standard variance. Literally the question here is asking, well, let's look at the composition. So you used, looking at the question, it tells us that you used, going here, it says you used, this is what you did, you used 5,500 liters, and that was what you did. The question is, we don't have a problem with the amount right now. We're going to look at that when we talk about yield. But in terms of mix, how close is this to what the standard mix that we recommended? And we recommended a standard mix of 2 to 7 to 1. So let's look at it. And let's just pick up from here. So 5,500 is what the total is. 5,500. I expect to see a mix of 2 to 7 to 1. So literally for my blue paint, I expect to see 2 over 10 times 5,500. For my yellow paint, I expect to see 7 over 10 times 5,500. And for the bonding agent, and I think this is also a good question because it really helps us to understand how process manufacturing works, because this mix is pretty critical to whether or not you will get the final product. And what do we have? We have 1,100 liters. We have 3,850 liters, and we have 550 liters. So that's what we're expecting you to do. What did you go ahead and do? So what you actually did was you actually did 1,000, then you did 4,000, and then you did 500. So just change my pen color. So that's what you actually did, and that was what you should have done. That's the plan. So let's look here. So you actually did well. You used less than you should have, right? You use less than you should have here. Actual is less than that, and that's favorable. You use more than you should have here, and that's about 150. Adverse. And you use less than you should have. So you did 50 less than you should have. So that's favorable, I guess, if you like, because you did less. You used less bonding agent than you should. So again, we literally multiply these again by the price per liter. And we told this, if you like, over here. We're using the standards, of course, up here, right? So these are your standards, standard costs. And you multiply that by £2.50, because this is all internal now. When I say it's all internal, these are internal judgments. It's all about the standards. We've done the price variance, and we're sort of done with that now. So we're just looking at the internal scenarios. Times £3 times £10. And what you get is 250 favorable, 450 adverse, 500 favorable. And when you add all this together, you get 750 minus 450, so you have 300 favorable in the end. And that is your mix variance. So again, with mix, again, I'll emphasize in my email, to ensure your question is, don't change the total. Keep the total the same of the total amount that went in, because it's about the mix, right? You used 5,500. And let's compare what you should have in the composition that's given to you versus what you actually did. So this is where we talk about what you actually did. This is where we actually compare that question of comparing standard to actual. Okay, great. Finally, let's talk about the yield. Now, the yield, again, is very much about output. Yes, yield from farming, what came out, what was the result. So the question really is you used 5,500 kilograms of this thing, of your blue paint and your yellow paint and your bonding agent, to give us, the aim is to give us green paint. So the question we want to ask ourselves is that we are told, if you like, let's go back to our standard, we expect you to use 10 liters of this thing to produce 9 liters of green paint, right? Because it's all about output. So we expect you to use 10 liters to give us 10 liters of this mix to give 9 liters of green paint. So the question is, if this is what we expect, if we expect you 10 liters to do there, the question is, what would we expect from 5,500? Right? And so, really, we are literally asking the question, well, what is 5,500 divided by 10 times 9 liters, ultimately? And that gives us 4,950 liters. So we are expecting 4,950 liters of green paint. That's what we're expecting. The question is, how many did you do? And you did, you came out with 5,000 liters. I'll just change my pen color. We can see it here. It tells us in the question that you came out with 5,000 liters of green paint. So you actually did better than what we were expecting. Green paint. So that's 50 extra liters of green paint. Now, of course, we have to cost this, and we are told, this question is slightly helpful. It cost of 1 liter of green paint. I mean, look, here's the standard cost of 9 liters of green paint, if you like. Right, and that standard cost, I'm just highlighting this, that standard cost of 9 liters of green paint, it has come from 10 liters of introduction, if you like, of this. So that's the 5 plus the 21 plus 10. That's the 36 over there. I mean, it's the 36 is based on, of course, the input. And of course, if you're making 9, you can find out what the cost is of 1. So ultimately, it's the average cost of the weighted average, technically, if you had to do weighted averages, but you don't. So that's why we always go back to this question of standards again, comparing the just looking at standards when we look at yield and not looking at actual, if you remember. So we know what the standard cost is, which is £4 is given to us. We know it was £36 for 9, and so we can work out what it is for 1, if you like, right? And so therefore, it's just kind of keep you flexible. They didn't have to give you the fact that it was 30. They could just have kept it as it was, as in 5, 10, and 21. Then you would have had to add that together, divide by the 9 liters, right? Because that's the cost of making 9 liters. That's the key point here. Great. So they tell us that it's £4. So definitely that's £200 favorable, right? In terms of yield. Cool. Great stuff. So so that's it. So please watch this. Make sure you're entirely happy with mix, yield, and price variance. Great stuff.